day 4 of 31 days of horror, Halloween, whatever you want to call it, 2015, and we're jumping a couple of years. I believe the last one we did was White Zombie from the early 1930s. But we're totally skipping over World War II. We're going straight to the mid-50s with one of the greatest schlock horror films pretty much of the era, William Castle's The House on Haunted Hill, which is actually a really, really solid movie. Of course, anchored by Vincent Price. And this is one of those films where, even by this point in the horror genre's lifespan, I mean, we'd already kind of figured out sort of the tropes. I mean, you look at a movie like Cabin in the Woods and Scream, you're like, oh, they're sort of, going out there and dissecting, all the cliches and stereotypes. Well, I mean, this movie was pretty much doing the exact same thing during the Eisenhower administration. So it's clearly a film that's, quasi-parodying sort of the gothic horror trappings. But it's also a pretty, entertaining genre film in its own right without being, a complete, satire on what it's actually emulating. Alright, so tell me if this plotline seems familiar, because, as I look back on these films I've done, at least half of them have the exact same plot. You have a bunch of people who are trying to make money because someone's, about to die or give up their will or something like that. And because they want that money, or someone's trying to protect that money, a whole bunch of people end up dying. That's literally like the plot line for The Bat, which is a movie from the 1920s we reviewed earlier. It's pretty much the plot line for like 3 or 4 more movies we have coming up throughout the month. So as far as recycled plot lines, yeah, that seems to be a commonality in the horror genre. So anyway, Vincent Price plays this dude. He owns like a house, and he has a wife who like really hates him. And he's just like so just like henpecked, and like the entire movie's like, you want my money. Just doing that over and over again. And he's such a great character actor. He brings like such a legitimacy to this movie. He's like Gregory Peck in The Omen. He just makes something so like stupid and banal and really like sort of fantastical and juvenile a whole lot more respectable and believable and enjoyable, just because he brings that air of professionality to it. So basically, yeah, going back to it, he's basically owns a haunted house, he and his wife wants him dead so she can have the money, and there's like this really convoluted backstory where they have a whole bunch of people, and it's a really good cast of characters. I'll give them credit because they're actually pretty inventive. A whole bunch of people who really want money, and if they can survive a night in the haunted house, they get like some like incredibly low sum by today, so like $10,000. And of course, there's a bunch of spooky stuff going on, and one by one they all end up dying. And there's like a journalist with a gambling problem. There's this playboy dude who's a complete misogynist. There's like this really nice girl, the secretary. So it's almost kind of like Saw in a way. You got all these social archetypes coming together and kind of evaluating their humanity and their inner awfulness, and kind of seeing them, get their just desserts for being such terrible people and having these character defects. So once again, that's yet another genre trope, which has been a commonality for the genre for decades and decades. But of course, this being a Vincent Price movie and a William Castle movie, there's a pretty good twist. There's not actually anything supernatural going on per se. It's basically just Vincent Price. The entire movie's doing this elaborate setup, so he can, basically trick his wife into, basically getting what she deserves at the end. And there's some pretty good stuff here. There's some decent moments. The two big ones, there's like this part where very early on, at the first big jump scare of the movie, you have like this haggard old woman like rolling around a room, not walking, not floating, I mean literally just like walking through scenes. So that's kind of weird. Not really sure how to interpret that, but it's effective nonetheless. And of course, there's a big grand finale, and I'm going to spoil the entire movie. I don't really care. It's older than 50 years. You can say whatever you want. When Vincent Price has the quote-unquote skeleton arise from the acid pool to attack his wife, and he's doing the voiceover from beyond the grave, that's just utterly fantastic. That's great stuff. I mean, that's one of the things where I really, really enjoy old school horror, because you get like stuff like that, which just seems so kitschy and just so like lame and predictable and tired, but it's still so cool at the same time. It's just so over the top and melodramatic and just trashy and so satisfying. You know, I've always said, you know, the horror film, if it were a meal, it wouldn't be a filet mignon. It'd just be a big old greasy hamburger. And that's what really House on Haunted Hill is. It's a big, greasy, enjoyable horror hamburger. You know, not a whole lot of social commentary. Not really striving to go for any bigger political overtones like, you know, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, anything like that. It's just a good old-fashioned meta haunted house gothic parody. And Vincent Price totally makes it one work. And if you haven't seen it, you probably should. It's actually quite entertaining. Alright, so House on Haunted Hill, really enjoyed this one. It's a solid B film. Well, B film is in having the scholastic grade B and also being a B movie itself, quite literally. So, you know, I'm going to give this pretty high marks. I give it, using the old Roger Ebert half-star rating, I'm going to give this one 3 pieces of candy corn out of 4. So it's worth going out of your way to see. Alright, well, that's House on Haunted Hill, 1955. And you know what? This train keeps chugging. Now we're heading into the 60s.